are you doing? So we are on to the third Pirates of the Caribbean film, At World's End, which, in my opinion, has the most iconic opening of all of the films. The opening song from Hans Zimmer, Hoist the Colours, it's so memorable and beautifully integrated. The way that they use the percussive stomping of the convicted pirates, and the boys singing as well, it just works so well. I saw in the DVD commentary, there's a big feature on the music, and this DVD actually has the most special features of all of them. There was lots of bonus material, which is brilliant. But Hans Zimmer was basically procrastinating writing this song for a long time, and it was getting to the point where it was almost too late. And the director, Gore, he eventually just said, he called Hans and said, look, we're doing this now over Zoom or, whatever virtual meeting site was around at the time. And they just wrote it there and then with Gore on guitar and Hans brainstorming ideas on the keyboard. So they got the first few lines that the boy sings in the film, and Hans knew it worked when he asked his wife to sing, because it was a similar register, and it just worked, and they knew they had something straight away. Brilliant song, brilliant opening, and then we move into the Singapore location where we meet Sao Feng, and I have to praise the set designers again. The set for this location is absolutely gorgeous, and there are bonus features on this where they kind of walk you around and talk about how they made it all, but the dampness and all the mushrooms about, there are so many mushrooms, and they end up just building the sauna in reality just to make it all function, and they have plumbing and pipes that run through the floors. So when Sao Feng asked for more steam, they just had to build the system that enables more steam. There's no special effects, it's just all there, it's all practical, and you can really tell it's absolutely brilliant. And the design is coming clutch again when we see the map that Sao Feng gives Barbossa and Elizabeth. The maps are just so clever, the way they integrate Chinese and languages that look like other languages upside down, and then you rotate them and it makes an English word. And certain shapes can combine to make drawings and give away new secrets. It's so clever, and the design looks beautiful, but the fact it all functions just as we see it in the film, that enables all these close-ups of the characters using the maps, it just goes to show how clever the designs are. And another character I want to talk about in this that really comes into his own, I feel, in this film, is Lord Beckett, because I feel like he's quite understated in the first two. He gets a much bigger role in the second film. I feel like James Norrington is kind of the more Lord Beckett character in the first film, and then Lord Beckett gets more of a chance to shine in this third one. He's just very authoritative and completely unafraid. He confronts Davy Jones like he was anyone else. Brilliant acting. Along with David Schofield, who plays Mr. Mercer. And I wanted to mention him when I was talking about the second film, but I forgot. Mr. Mercer, I'm not sure his name even gets brought up in the motion picture. I had to research who he was, but I just love his character. He's such an understated, evil man. Like, all of his kills are some of the most brutal in the franchise. He's so cold and clever, and we see him lurking when Will Turner is talking to Sao Feng, and Mr. Mercer is about to kill him on the spot there and then. It's only where we he or Will revealing his motives with freeing his father from the Dutchman, that Mr. Mercer eventually takes down the gun and starts listening, and the plan starts forming, and you realise how clever he is. Then I have to talk about the other Captain Jack intro, which is unlike any other we've ever had, I think it's safe to say. So weird and surreal, but brilliant. I feel like it's really clever in showing all of the different facets of Jack. I love how when it's without consequence, and we know he's not actually killing anyone, it really shows his darker side and the thoughts that actually go through his head. And it harks back to the first motion picture, I feel, where he was less of a comedic character and we hadn't fully got to know him yet, so he just seems like quite a horrific pirate and very scary. I feel like when we see all of his character traits split up into different physical people in this scene, it shows how scary he can be and how much darkness is still in there. I feel like that maybe gets lost in the other films, but it really comes to the forefront here. And the chemistry between Jack and Barbossa is also highlighted when Jack gets rescued and they get reunited. The chemistry is just fantastic. And it teases the next film as well, which I'm going to touch on more when we watch that. But their chemistry and these two titans of the acting industry just going at it, you don't know who to look at. Just every time you think one has the upper hand in a scene, the other one comes up with something else, and it's brilliant television. It's an honour to watch them in the same scene together. Then another really memorable scene is when they discover the ghosts that sail the ocean for the rest of eternity, and one of these ghosts is heartbreakingly Elizabeth's father. It's such an emotional scene. The acting from Keira Knightley and the way Elizabeth's father just goes, "I think I'm dead." It just hits you. It's so brutal. It's a horrific idea, absolutely brilliant at the same time, beautifully executed, just so memorable. And then we get to the point where they figure out how they're going to get out of the lockup, because Jack figures out that the ship needs to be upside down, and then sunset becomes sunrise, and they'll be out of the lockup. So when they start rocking the ship, it's genius the way he figures it out with a rolling eye going over the map. It's hilarious when Barbossa starts cutting the cannons off so they have extra weight, and Jack doesn't tell them initially. He just starts running back and forth, and they start following him thinking, what's there, but what's he seeing? And then they figure it out. Oh, I love it. Then I want to talk about Southing's death, actually, because in my opinion, it possibly happens too soon. What do you think? I don't feel like, maybe it doesn't happen too soon in the film, but I feel like he's in too few scenes for it to happen this early, if that makes sense. Like, he gets introduced as a new main character, sure, but he's not actually in much of the film. And I think possibly his death doesn't have the impact that I feel it was supposed to. I'd love to know your thoughts on this and to see if you agree. But yeah, then Elizabeth is made captain. And this kind of middle part of the film is a point I wanted to raise because I feel it has much slower pace than the other two films. I feel like the plot starts to thin out. And And I hate to say this, but I am pretty certain that this is my least favourite film of the franchise, but I don't want that to sound as harsh as it does, because it's a fantastic film, and just watching it on its own, I really enjoy watching it. But the other films are just so fantastic. One of them has to be your least favourite. And I hate to say that this is mine, because as I said, I enjoy watching it, and it's a brilliant creation. But this middle part of the film is what does it for me. It slows down. I feel like the plot doesn't have as much substance as the other four. And yeah, I find myself being able to be distracted a lot more during this part of the film. However, my attention is immediately brought back when Elizabeth escapes the Dutchman and we get the death of James Norrington, which, again, this isn't as major characters, similar to Sel Feng, but we've had 2 films to get to know James, obviously, so I feel like it's much more impactful. And he does a very noble thing, and his death does pull at the heartstrings for me personally. And when Bootstrap just kills him, it's absolutely brutal when he's chanting part of the crew, part of the ship. Stellan Skarsgård, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but the actor does a brilliant job. And the music's swelling, and they're all acting their socks off, and the direction's beautiful. It's the perfect death for a character. Then, moving on to when we get the Calypso reveal, where Davy Jones is summoned to meet with Lord Beckett and Will. One thing I noticed in the scene is that because Bill Nye is just so incredible, there's no music required in the scene. The first 2/3 of this scene, I don't think there's any music, and then towards the latter part where he speaks of her in a more romantic manner, I think their theme kind of very subtly comes in with the music box. But apart from that, there's very little music. It's maybe just very atmospheric music in the background, but there's no theme because Bill Nye just commands the scene on his own. Absolutely incredible performance. And then we get to the scene with the 9 pirate lords, which is incredibly long and must be so difficult to pull off when you have this much dialogue of one scene of the same number of characters in the same room together. But the dialogue is so good, and the introduction of the captain with Keith Richards, he's perfect for this role. And he might not be an actor, but because the role is just so Keith Richards anyway, he doesn't need to be. It just works. It does get split up by another amazing scene between Calypso and Davy Jones, where we see him as a man for the first time and only time. It's so emotive and scary as well when Davy Jones just morphs through the cage into where Calypso is imprisoned. The dynamic between those two is incredible. The way Calypso isn't afraid of him, and they're just so good together. And then we get to the confrontation between the 6 pirates. After Elizabeth has been made Pirate King, we get that confrontation on the beach, which I have to praise the music as well. When that distorted guitar comes in, that lead distorted guitar, with I think harmonica as well, I think. I'm probably wrong, but it sounds like harmonica. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece. And I found out on the DVD bonus features, actually, that Gore is actually the one playing the guitar. And he does such a brilliant job. And the acting it's iconic. 6 of them are genius actors in their own right, and they're just all on top form. And the way it's directed, it's like a Western. The music and the direction kind of reminds me of a Western, and I'm sure that was intentional. and it completely works. Then moving on to the unleashing of Calypso and her subsequent death. The CGI of this is brilliant. They do it so well. There's not one dodgy shot in this film that I noticed, at least, in terms of special effects, sorry. And the sound as well. The way they edit the sound with, I think, high-cut filters, and the way they manipulate the dialogue. It's absolutely horrific and it's piercing. But it's so perfect the way they do it. And then obviously she bursts into those tiny little critters. Oh, it's powerful. And then before we get to the epic final battle, Keira Knightley declares war, and the speech she does to the crew is one of her best moments, I feel, in the franchise. She has a few speeches earlier on in the film, and a few moments where her character's being very authoritative, and I don't want to say her performance is lacking, but I just feel like it feels like less of a climactic moment. Whereas this scene, she turns it up to 11, and it really works, and it feels like a proper climax, and you just know that shit's about to go down. And then they dive into the maelstrom, where the special effects, credit to everyone involved in making this, the design is absolutely incredible. And the ships, I saw on the bonus features again, they built all these ships for real and put them up on gigantic plinths, where they set the plinths to a huge angle to have that effect of them going into the maelstrom and being on their sides. That's all for real. The only special effects really are is the water and that kind of tornado effect of the maelstrom. But all the rain and the ships and the sets, it's all practical. And it looks absolutely incredible. I feel like, I remember they said it was the biggest moving set that had ever been built at the time. And it's really worth the scale, because the film benefits no end from it. And then we have the sword fight between Jack and Davy Jones, which is completely epic, and the direction is on a different scale. And the way they integrate the stunt doubles with the real actors, it's seamless. So again, credit to the effects team, credit to Jack as well, and the actors and the stunt doubles, because there's so much choreography involved, and time has to be spent behind the scenes to get these scenes perfect, to make it work like a dance. It's seamless and it's done so well, so credit to everyone involved in making those scenes. And then we get the marriage between Will and Elizabeth, married by Barbossa. Geoffrey Rush is just so hilarious in this. The way Elizabeth and Will have to say each of their vows before, in between killing pirates, and the way Geoffrey Rush delivers this, it's absolutely iconic. He steals the scene, in my opinion. He's just always the centre of my attention whenever he's on screen. Then, contrasting to this comedic moment, we get the death of Will Turner, which is absolutely brutal, by the way. The way the sword just goes in, and Jones just refuses to pull it out. And, it's absolutely brutal. And then we, of course, get the death of Jones, which is brilliant acting from Depp, needless to say, of course, he's never not doing brilliant acting. But in this scene especially, similar to when he kills Barbossa actually in the first motion picture, he just has a completely cold stare. Because you feel like he doesn't actually want to do it. But he has to, because he knows it's the right thing. It's powerful. And then the Dutchman emerges from under the sea, and the Pearl and the Dutchman gang up on the Endeavour. And this is such a brilliant end to the picture. The way they gang up and turn, and they're either side of the Endeavour. The direction and the shot of those three ships all lined up, and you just know what's about to happen. It's brilliant, and the slow-mos and all the debris flying everywhere, but Lord Beckett just being in the centre of it, and you just being face on with his expressions, and him just knowing there's nothing that can be done. He's about to go down with the ship. Oh, it's gorgeous, beautiful television. And then that's essentially the end of the film. We get the kiss between Will and Elizabeth, as is compulsory, of course. But then we have the hilarious tease of the next film, where Barbossa opens up the map to supposedly the Fountain of Youth. And there's just a gigantic hole cut out in the middle, and then it cuts to Jack with the circle of the actual map to the Fountain of Youth. Oh, it's just the most Jack Sparrow moments of all Jack Sparrow moments. Pardon me, Captain Jack Sparrow. It's just the perfect setup to the next film. And I can't wait to watch it with you and discuss it. I love that film so much. There's going to be so much to talk about. But in terms of this film, I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know your opinions on it. Please let me know all your thoughts, as always. And thank you for listening to me talk about it. I look forward to doing the same with the next one. Speak to you soon. Be well.